Illumination will be suspended in 20 seconds.
Welcome to hell.
All offenders prepare for decontamination.
That's right. Welcome. Another episode of Deep Space Nine at Nine-ish coming at you. Live Long and Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Mater. As always, panelists of guests. We have my brother, Dave Mater, Jaemeel Robinson. Hey. Jaemeel Robinson, how are you?
Hot times, Daddy. Hot times.
Hard times. Kevin Millard, how are you? Are you doing okay in solitary? Are you all alone?
I am all alone. I did not kill Ashley, though. She's just working.
Yeah, that's good.
We have plenty of food.
She's your best friend.
Yeah.
And as always, cousin Davan Skelhorn. How are you doing, Davan?
Oh, good. I brought the merry times.
Oh, that's good. I mean, we need some levity here on this episode because it's another O'Brien must suffer episode, guys. It's in the long saga of O'Brien never getting what he wants, only getting pain and misery because Cole Meany's acting demands it. This episode's one of my favorite episodes of Star Trek. Every time I watch it, it's kind of like The Visitor. I always get very emotionally invested in this episode. And I do think mostly it has to do with O'Brien, like Cole Meany's performance, but also I really, really enjoy Alexander Siddig's performance. I really think he brings an emotional, like he's the flip side of the coin to O'Brien here. It's not so much HR is kind of like the representation of his guilty conscience that's kind of flashing through him through hallucinations. But for me, that's what I really dig about this episode. Dave, what kind of stands out for you in this episode? I'm sure we're all gonna have different points.
Yeah, well, I agree with you that this is, I think, one of the strongest episodes of Deep Space Nine and one of the strongest episodes of this, I think of Star Trek in a lot of ways, although it's not a completely original idea in this, this sort of accelerated prison in your mind idea that I think we've seen a few sci-fi shows do. But I think that Cole Meany, I don't know if he has a better, stronger performance in all of his Star Trek appearances than this. No. And I actually think that the guest star who plays Ichar, whatever his name is, he's fantastic in this episode. Yeah, I think
his name's Craig Wasson.
Craig Wasson. I don't believe he went on to do any other roles, and he's not. He's effectively playing an imaginary character that never really existed. But he was real to Miles, and so I think that he's meant to be sort of a proxy for Julian. He's supposed to be I think he's supposed to remind us of Alexander Siddig, and the comparisons between them and the way that, and sort of just the cadence of how they speak it reminds me a lot of each other, of both of them. So I think that we have a lot to unpack here, and I'm excited.
For sure we do. Davan, what do you make of the HR character? Where do you think that there's kind of two representations of him, the kind of the HR that's in the prison, and then the HR that is the hallucinations that end up on the station kind of following O'Brien around? Do you think they represent two different things? Are they the same character in O'Brien's mind, no matter what? Do you see them linked or different?
I actually saw it different this time than I have on all past viewings. I used to think it was either he was implanted into that scenario by the Agrathi and then reimagined by Miles later type of thing. But now I just think it was always just Miles's imagination. And that seems weird if you think about it, because HR's there immediately as soon as Miles gets there. But with this compressed time sort of algorithm that they're using, it's not necessarily an immediate thing according to his mind in a way. You know what I'm saying? And it's the same with when he killed HR. I think that was just them pulling Miles out of the scenario, because it happens like, he says he was alone for like a week or two after he kills HR, and then they pull him out. I think him killing HR was just his brain reacting to being pulled out of that scenario, and it just felt like him but as another couple of weeks, because an hour felt like 20 years. So that's what I think's going on there. That's my long-winded response to what I think.
So for I kind of like I agree and disagree with certain things you're saying. Like for me, I think that HR is like already programmed into the prison, but whoever the prisoner is basically creates the personality of HR, and then that their imagination kind of fills all the personality traits and all like that's kind of how I view it. Because like you said, he's already there. I also think you're right that like when they're pulling him out, that's when I feel like they're pulling him out because they see that he has suffered enough now, that he is that the punishment has been severe enough and long enough that it's worked. So then HR must now be killed for him to suffer in the real world too. It's almost like a double punishment. Kevin, does that kind of track with you, or do you kind of have a different theory on this?
Mostly, I think you're right that HR was created by O'Brien, because he is a lot like Bashir. Like their dynamic is a lot, and he even says that like it doesn't matter, even if it had been you, I would have done it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And but I don't think they pulled him out because he needed to suffer. He did that. That's, I think, kind of the whole point. They didn't engineer him killing HR.
Mm-hmm.
He killed HR of his own accord. This was not part of the punishment, I don't think. It reveals a part of him that he would rather not know about either. And that's I think what the episode really speaks to. It's the darker parts of humanity.
What humanity is willing to do when they're hungry enough, fed up enough, punished enough, tortured enough that they're willing to kill their best friend.
But I don't know that was actually part of the punishment, because they also say that he made decisions in the punishment that make the punishment real, like that they drive and make decisions, and it changes based on their decisions.
Right. Okay. So Jaemeel, on this kind of same kind of topic, like where do you fall? Like where do you kind of see HR? Is he a program design of the Agrathi, or is it just completely O'Brien's imagination? Like do you look at it as HR is, I kind of view like two different versions of HR. One is like, to me, like the program kind of screwing with him. And then the second part for me is the guilty conscience of O'Brien. But how do you look at it, Jaemeel?
I look at HR as he is a part of the program, and he plays a specific part there. The sentence is there, and yes, O'Brien does control his actions and makes decisions throughout the time that he's there. But HR is there to, as mentioned, you can do one of two things. You can either go mad or you can laugh, right? Mm-hmm. And he was there as a companion to get him through, right? He details the rules, right? He's there also to keep him in line as well, keep him contained, and also keep him sane at the same time. We have to understand that the way that they've built this prison is to get them in and out and back into society. Otherwise, and to make sure it's affordable. It wouldn't be affordable if the people that you punished immediately became useless, suicidal individuals. So what has happened is Chief did kill HR, yes, but HR remained, and HR would have remained as the rehabilitation portion of the sentence. And then once he was able to to really close the book on his time in the prison was when Ichar was able to disappear and leave, because that part of the program is over.
Okay. Dave, just go swinging it back over to you. Like, you haven't kind of been able to answer kind of the overall question here. Like, do you think Ichar is a part of the program or part of O'Brien's imagination? Does it matter? Is it speaking to O'Brien as a person or just humanity in general? Like, where do you go on this?
Well, I think that Ichar is a choice on the part of the Grathi to put into the program. They said that, or Bashir explains later to Caico, that the program is tailored to each prisoner specifically. So but I'm kind of unclear about exactly on what this Agrathi's intent was, because we're all over the place in terms of like, well, maybe they want to turn him into, they want to punish him, maybe they want him to re-enter society one day, but they sure did a number on him. I don't know if the Agrathi, the native Agrathi, would know that this is like a time-lapse prison experience. Would you normally know that Ichar is not real if you were from that planet, or would you not know? I'm not really clear on that part, because O'Brien doesn't know that this is a simulation. It has a different effect on him. He doesn't know Ichar is not real. He thinks he is. So and the simulation has this like high degree of like torture to it, right? Where, you know, sticking two guys in a cell for 20 years, they're eventually going to maybe come to blows, you know, even if he really loves the other guy, you know, and because it's a long time to just be cooped up like that, not able to leave. They're starving them for weeks at a time. What's the point of that? Like, I feel like in some ways Ichar is almost like there to maybe break him of his humanity, or to break him of his goodness, you know. So I don't really get what these Agrathi were up to. I'm against them. I think that their penal system is abhorrent, and we never see them again. But I'd stay clear.
Well, I think the reason that it's torturous is because it's not real. If it was easy and it was only really an hour, then it wouldn't be a deterrent to crime. Mm-hmm. It has to be torturous since it's not actual time going by.
I have a question though, like why? If he's in there for 20 years in his head, right? Why doesn't he ever question the fact if it is real or not? He never goes outside. He never really has any exercise time. Like, he doesn't have certain things prisons are like required to do. Go ahead, Davan.
Yeah, okay, that's something I wanted to talk about. I'm glad you asked that. Which is why I think Ichar is just the other reason I think Ichar was there immediately is I think Ichar was actually just, and I think they keep hinting at this through the whole episode, that Ichar is just Miles's defense mechanism, that his mind is created to make sure that he doesn't go mad. Like, everything he says to Ichar this time, I took as him talking to himself, where he's just like, you either go or you laugh or you go mad. So his mind created somebody for him to laugh with. That's how I took it. Because if the Agrathi are looking to rehabilitate, it's pretty torturous. Like, even if it's not solitary, just it doesn't seem to be very good rehabilitation, at least not for a human.
So,
but
this is where I feel that Icheb plays an important role, and where we have to take
Icheb's on Voyager.
Icheb.
Yeah. I'm like, why am I saying Icheb?
This isn't Survivor yet. We're Sham.
Sham. Rick Hard.
Rickard?
Rick Hard.
Rickard's red?
Rickard's red. He's there as a rehabilitation portion. And like the human, which is the variance in this situation, right, is not experiencing it the same way. We don't know how cognitively the native individuals will be able to handle such a sentence, right? But I have to believe, and it might be just my wishful thinking, that it was built there as a hardship for him to go through, and then also one that he's able to overcome. If you aren't left with some kind of not necessarily a horror, but an impacted situation that you come on the other end that you're still haunted by, right? What is going to be the reaction with people that people are like, oh, it was 20 years and it was tough, but I'm okay. There has to be the deterrent, and the deterrent is the haunted nature, the impact that scenario has left the individual with.
One more debate point on that. This has to be added to a debate 9, by the way. This is like the greatest thing ever, is HR real? But he asked, okay, when HR shows up later on the station, Miles asks him what he was. And I'm pretty sure HR tells him that he was just like part of his mind the whole time. And he's like, you needed me, he says. You needed me then, and you need me even more now. So
Yes.
I feel like that's where he was telling Miles that he's just part of his own mind.
I totally agree that he is part of his own mind, but it's like a hologram character that's like got no personality. And yes, I think you're right that the entire personality
Miles fills it in.
Miles fills it in. But that's how I've always took this character, and that's why he's the same when he's his guilty conscience later on too. It's still the same thing in his head. He filled the memories. He filled the character and the synapse of everything that he was about, which was, like you're right. Like when he's talking to him, he's like, sleep tight, Miles. He's talking to himself. I agree with you. I think that's all those little things are, what are you in for? Espionage, like all the things that they say to each other. It's like he's really talking to himself, because if you are in solitary confinement, you go crazy. Like this is like a proven fact of prisons. And I think this is a great social commentary on how wrong solitary confinement is. Like Kevin, like did you kind of get that kind of commentary, that kind of metaphor for that, like that this is really about, in a lot of ways, solitary confinement?
Yeah, it's about a lot of things. It is about solitary and like torture, and it's also about friendship. It's also one of the first depictions of true PTSD before it was popular, I guess, or known anyway.
Yep.
And
it was called shell shock before.
Right. And it's a really deep episode of Star Trek. It's Star Trek at its best.
Yeah. Jaemeel, how would you take this episode as a commentary on prisons and prison systems?
It's like you're
Wait, did you just disappear and come back in a new shirt like 2 seconds later?
Same shirt.
This guy's Superman.
Same shirt.
Okay.
Same shirt.
Okay. My mistake.
Yes. This is a commentary, or I took it reflectively upon watching it, about our prison system, our industrial prison complex, and how we as a society, I don't know why you're repeating that. We as a society have, we aren't looking at a complete slate from beginning, middle, end in terms of individuals that we send to prison. We send these individuals into these hellish situations, and regardless of what people say, right? Prison is not easy, right? Even those who look like they're okay or well off and have support from the outside, it is still a separation as a whole. And more often than not, the people that come out aren't the same that go in the first place.
Yeah.
And unlike in this scenario, in this episode, Miles at least had, from my perspective, had that support system to kind of bring him about. And even with that support system, he was very close to ending it all, right?
Yep.
How can we look at it as a society and expect individuals that don't have that support system, one, because they don't have it, two, because we don't provide it, and expect them to be able to be contributing members of society.
And not only that, Jaemeel, we encourage ostracizing, felons and prisoners and making them feel like they can't be reintroduced into society, harder to get a job, harder, to do all these things when they do finally come out of prison. And I think in this instance, because the chief has respect and people are like, you're the chief. Like we have this whole scene with Jake in this episode where it's like, all this stuff. He's like, but I say we do it again.
Yeah, I was like, who's this? Sarah Lofton? Is he on this show? We're in episode 19. When was the last time we saw him on this show?
A visitor.
Tony Todd's looking good for his age.
Yeah, Tony Todd, man. Like they brought him in for like 5 minutes, like to teach O'Brien how to use tools, and then he's gone.
They're like, we got a great
that was
scene
forced
here.
in, wasn't it? Like,
Yeah.
you really need something.
Well, Sirach, we can get you in one scene where you're showing O'Brien how to use his toolkit again because he forgot after 20 years. He forgot what a screwdriver was.
He's in an
But is
episode.
that something Jake would do? Sure, why not?
It is sort of because like he was learning to be an engineer at some point, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Not?
Mm.
Like
From O'Brien.
Well,
Him and the chief
he was
are-
learning
are
to be
fairly
Starfleet
Yeah.
from.
Right. And
Is
then
it-
he was
is-
like, nah.
Isn't Jake in an episode in
Yeah.
a couple episodes coming up?
He might be coming up, but yeah, he's been like absent from this season. Like we've been kind of outside
Tony
of the
Todd-
visitor.
Tony Todd has had more screen time as Jake Sisko this season than Sierra Clofton.
Yeah. And Tony Todd played Kern as well
Right.
this season, so he's been on the show way more. Not in the opening credits. I'm against it.
Which okay, and we could talk about.
Don't worry, they did away with both those Tony Todds.
They did, but like I did think of Kern in this episode when Bashir brings up the fact that O'Brien's memories will never he can never erase those specific memories because they're ingrained in his memory bank now, unless he wipes out his entire memory bank, which is what they did to Kern, and so and he's like, obviously that's not possible, that's what Bashir says, and the reason why that's not possible is because one, he'll forget everything he's ever learned as an engineer, and number two, he'll forget who he was and his family life and all the things that are important to him, whereas Kern didn't care. So
Yeah, why was it an option for
Kern didn't have a
but not an
choice.
option for-
that's true. Kern didn't have a
I don't think
choice.
They told Kern they were going to do that.
I didn't even tell him. He was just Kern's like, I'm gonna blow myself out an airlock unless you do this. And and O'Brien almost gets to that same point here where he's ready to he puts a phaser to his neck on maximum setting. But Caico doesn't choose to wipe his memory and give him a new identity. Because if only she knew that Bashir was well into the game of doing that. I gotta say something too about I thought Bashir was a good doctor, but I think a Beverly Crusher could have handled this memory erasure thing.
I disagree with that. I think Bones would have dealt with this better than Crusher.
I think any of the doctors would have done it. They've clearly erased memories in the past, and selectively. It's not. I think it seems like something they teach you secondary
Bones
medical
is
school.
old school.
What should have Bashir have done differently than he did do in this episode? Because he does do a few actions here, Dave. He goes, so you're going to counseling 3 times a week. He doesn't do it. He also tells him once that happens and he starts, he tries to break Quark's arm to get a drink. And he also yells at somebody else, at Bashir.
Bashir does everything fine.
Molly.
He's fine in this episode, except he's not a very good doctor in terms of memory erasures. I've seen better memory erasures from other doctors in Star Trek, and that's my point.
Oh, okay.
Dave, if you're going to invoke the Enterprise, don't you think who Miles really needed was a visit to Dr. Deanna Troi?
Yeah, or
not Dr. Crusher.
not
that the problem
not
with the-
Counselor Taloni or whatever.
Is that the problem? Yeah, we never see this counselor in this
Yeah,
episode, which I think is a mistake. And number two,
It sounds like an Andorian name.
it does. Is that a problem with the Deep Space Nine? They don't have a counselor. It's like Sisko, even in the scene with Sisko, he's kind of like, I wish I could, but Bashir's, basically my superior in this.
Yeah, this one thing, this one time, I'm gonna listen to Bashir.
He has to by.
This is Cisco. Come on.
Yeah. but
He doesn't care. He doesn't care what Bashir says most of the time.
Cisco
He's-
cares when it's a matter of these are like the guidelines that like if you break them, he could be reprimanded. He could be court-martialed for doing
Yeah.
something like that.
And Cisco doesn't want to get yelled at by O'Brien again when he complains about his coffee. So
Yeah.
he's like, no, you need counseling, dude.
That's doctors, like very rarely do this in Star Trek, but when they do, it's almost always for the right reason. It's I can't think of an instance where where a doctor relieves them of duty, nefariously.
Nefariously, no. I think that the fact that like we're going to deep dive into it. Like I think the fact that O'Brien was he said he hadn't seen the counselor in 10 days. This is when Bashir confronts him. Right. How much time goes by in this episode? I know there's 20 years in his mind, but when the time he gets back to the station versus like the end of the episode, it's at least a few weeks.
I feel like it's a month. I think it's like a month-long timeline.
It's a month long, and I think that they kind of let him get to this point, or they don't really understand how much is going wrong with him. I think that his relationship.
I think they do. He doesn't understand. They all understand what is wrong with him and how bad it is. It's really his reluctance to seek help is part of the story.
Right.
Not that they didn't know.
Right, and that's the other, like you said, like Kevin.
He knows what's going on all along.
This episode's about a lot of things, and that's another thing that it's really about. It's like you can talk about, like, especially men have a hard time asking for help, and that's like a common narrative that's definitely starting to be talked about more. But I feel like even back in 1997 or when this came out, I don't know that that was the case, and I think that this episode's way ahead of its time. That it's important to not brush things this serious aside, to actually seek help, and maybe go see your counselor when you need it. These things are important. So yeah, I think this episode's about a multitude of things, and that's one of them. And there's a bunch of moments in this episode where where O'Brien, you can see it on his face, like when he goes to order the drink from Quark, and like Quark literally just says like 1 minute, Chief, and you could see on his face just how pissed off he gets just for the fact that he has to wait. He's like, I've been waiting for 20 years for some scraps of bread.
What about that synth?
Tony Stark built this in a cave
With a bunch of scraps.
Because your life's in shambles right now.
Chief O'Brien built this in a cave.
Run, Cynthia, coming right up.
Is this episode kind of like Iron Man, the first Iron Man movie?
No?
No.
I just started.
John Favreau was watching it, and he's like, "By God, I think I got it."
Yeah.
HR
He's
is
like, what if
kinda
HR was this guy from Afghanistan who helped him build the first Iron Man suit? I got it.
What is this, Chief? Arc reactor?
Arc reactor, of course.
I think there's some parallels there. That's all.
You
I'm
should
saying.
have built a Jericho missile.
But yeah, I
Quark wasn't the most tactful there, though. Sure, your life is in shambles, Chief. Like, geez.
Yeah, he's like, just get your license shambles, Chief. Yeah, he's like,
Everyone's walking around eggshells around this dude, and he's like, "Nah, man, I don't care."
yeah, he's like, I don't care. I also I love that scene where he's about to break his wrist here, and just this extra Bolian who's in the background who's just reacting the whole time. What the hell? It's but not intervening, not even saying anything. They're just kind of watching,
Does
Brian
Napoleon care at all?
Yeah, nobody even cares. No, they're perfectly fine to see this bartender who's working very hard get his wrist broken by this.
That's his serving arm. That's what he's concerned about. He's like, "Aw."
Yeah.
the bully.
Here's
is
a
kind of
question. Have you
smiling.
guys ever seen it that busy at Quarks?
No, I think that's
Having a
on
good day.
purpose.
That's
They
like the
need-
busiest Quarks has ever been.
They
Yeah.
okay. So the other thing that this episode's definitely about is isolation, I know we mentioned solitary, but that's kind of a different thing. Like he wants to be alone. He wants to be isolated. He goes and sits and drinks his beer by himself, and that's when HR again appears. Like this whole theme keeps coming back. When he wants to go be alone, that's when HR comes to him.
They also did sorry, just to jump in, I'll be very quick. They were also very good to showcase that in the shot of there was people around him on the sides, but you can tell that O'Brien is completely isolated, even though there was individuals, groups of people framing the shot on the sides. He still felt alone, right? He still seemed alone.
Absolutely, and I think that isolation is what kind of like this episode's about. He needs to learn to be okay with reintegrating into society. Like he can't be the person he was when he was alone around people. Like that's basically what it is, and he keeps reverting to the way he was in prison. What he's doing with his food, and he's separating it on the plate. What he's doing in the bar, where he's using aggression to get Quark to give him his drink so he can go drink it by himself. You know, there's just all these different moments where he's sleeping on the floor by himself. There's so many different moments throughout this episode where HR only shows up when he is reverting to his prison lifestyle. And I think, again, that's a great commentary of like what a lot of prisoners are like, because they go through this trauma of prison and it stays with them and they can never shake it. Like there's like almost nothing they can do to shake the, like we see it in Shawshank Redemption, where Brooks Hadlin gets out of prison and he tries to reintegrate into society and he's like, this isn't for me. And he hangs himself. You know, I think these type of things are universal when you talk about prison stories. Dave, what do you have to say about this?
Well, yeah, I agree that it's like Star Trek hasn't really tackled the trauma of, you know, incarceration quite in this way. You know, I think that it's I think I agree with a lot of what you're saying. You know, I think that it has this big effect. I think about how a society treats its prisoners, I think, is a reflection on it. Yeah, I think that like how are you going to come back to it? My least favorite part of this episode, Jeff, is that it's never really referenced again. Like after this, you know, O'Brien really isn't affected by this. It's never brought up again. So, you know, it seems like
they give him antidepressants at the end of the episode.
Right. Daddy's home and it's all good. You know, and I think that that's maybe my biggest criticism of this episode, but it's not necessarily I think as a standalone piece, it works really well. I think that, you know, and how they try to resolve it, I think they try to do their best. I think it was, you know, it was the time, it was the fact that this was syndicated TV. They didn't want like too many recurring storylines and experiences to have to be constantly referenced, even though Deep Space Nine did it more than anybody. You know, and I think that I agree with it. A lot of what we're saying here is that this is kind of a groundbreaking episode.
That's a good point, Dave, though. Like, why is it okay to bring up, you know, Kira's trauma of the occupation and Gul Dukat and everything? Every time Gul Dukat comes into an episode, you know, I went through this for all these years and the resistance and everything. But like, yeah, you're right. They never bring this up. They don't do. It's actually quite a few characters where they do, like Bashir too. Anything these, like he's in a prison later on in season 5, spoiler, where he's, you know, and then they kind of don't mention that later on a lot either. You know, it's kind of just like, okay, you got through it. It sucked, but you know, you were in a Jem'Hadar war camp. Yeah, I don't think you just get over those things. You know, a month later. you know what I mean? So yeah, I agree with you.
That was just kind of what they did back then, right? Like, you know, Picard's experiences with the Borg and within the Cardassian, you know, 4 lights. They, like, for the most part, they show that, you know, that they're not going to dwell on those things, and they would now. Like, I think that's the difference with modern TV is they would come back to this trauma way more often. You know, so you notice it a little bit.
Yeah, plus that Jem'Hadar prison was pretty cushy if you're not a Klingon compared to these Akashi prisons.
That's true. That's true. It was basically like, you know, ancient Rome if you were a Klingon. Okay,
which is great if you're a Klingon. So maybe it's good if you're a Klingon too.
it's pretty
Cushy
Take all that back. Never
all
mind.
around. Yeah.
It's just a nice
okay.
place to be.
Yeah. Although Worf had it rough. He had to fight like
Klingons do not surrender.
he had quite a funeral. Martok, on the other hand, he kind of had it pretty good in that prison. But
He
that's
lost an eye.
yeah. But after that,
It made him cooler though.
it did make him
But he's
cool.
got the other one.
He's got the other one, and he's battle scar. Chicks dig it.
Sorella
Okay.
does not dig it.
Yeah, his wife Sorella, the baby
Yeah,
of his
she does
existence.
not dig it.
Okay, the one thing I really want to talk about in this episode, it's to be the heart of the episode, is his relationship with Bashir. And I just really think that the performance of Alexander Siddig in this episode is underappreciated. I don't think we talk about it enough. I think he is so good in this episode. There's so many times where he's my favorite character in a lot of ways on Deep Space Nine, because I think he brings an emotional heart a lot of the time to the episode. I see why he was considered to play Cisco, because he's really good at these type of things. Davan, do you share my love for Alexander Siddig's performances in episodes like this?
I do, and especially in this scene that you're that picture is of, when you just have the chief with the phaser to his chin, and they just zoom out, and Bashir's standing there. Just that is powerful, and then he comes in, and he's just it really is perfect. And something he says is what I think is what the episode's really about, which is not letting like an injustice destroy a good man. And he's like, you just can't let them do that, Miles. Like, that's what the Agrathi are trying to do here, and that would be a real shame, and you're not worth dying over, and that type of thing. But that scene, that scene and the scene right before it hits you right in the feels. This is the first time I think I've seen this episode since having a daughter myself. And then when he like almost hits his daughter and then goes to kill himself for that. The whole time I cried. Okay, I cried. I admit it. I cried. This is a 10. I take back what I said last week about there only being 2 10s in DS9. There's probably like 15 10s in DS9.
Yeah.
And this is one of them.
I said not now, right? I said not.
Yeah, I 100%
Oh my God.
agree with everything you just said. Jaemeel, do you kind of feel that same way? You were nodding, I saw, with his performance here, because I do think Bashir gets a bad rap as far as like for the first 3 seasons he's a goofball, and then all of a sudden like he becomes like I think what originally he was cast to be, and then they were like, we can't use him that way anymore because we have Avery Brooks, and so now he's like they didn't figure out how to use him, I feel like, until about these episodes that we're showing. Do you feel that way, Jaemeel?
Yeah. If it was old Bashir, there would be some kind of reference to himself in a monologue, and that was not needed here at all. It was such a powerful scene, such a powerful scene by both actors giving a great performance and kind of letting just everything breathe out. It's like it's simple but yet effective in terms of the performances. It doesn't seem either individual is like overacting or giving too much. It's just the right amount needed for this to display the amount of emotion, to display the amount of concern and control. All right, I love that sequence. It's just amazing.
The other sequence that I really love is when Cisco relieves him of duties, and he like throws his comm badge down going down the elevator, which I love. It's like that's lost forever, that's gone. And then the other thing I thought was like, when he walks into O'Brien's office, first I thought I was gonna hit him, and then but he doesn't. He just like basically yells at him like he's like his younger brother. And he also kind of gives him this he kind of mentions like the old Bashir that we're talking about. Like, I've had enough of your smug attitude or something that he says to him. And the one thing that I really love about Bashir in this episode is just like how he doesn't let that emotionally affect him. He looks at it like from perspective of a doctor and a friend, but both at the same time. Kevin, do you kind of see things along those lines? Do you like these performances between these two actors in these two scenes that we're talking about?
100%. He my favorite, I think, with Bashir in this is that he doesn't talk a lot, and O'Brien screaming at him, yelling at him, and it's just on his face. You see it on his face. He's like, "Yeah, I get it, like it's fine. I'm not going to react." But he's still, at the same time, he doesn't back down either. He doesn't, like, when he, I forget exactly what he says, but he's like, "You did this," or like, "You told Cisco to do this to me," and he's like, "Yes, I did, because you need to go to counseling."
Yeah.
And then he yells at him, but he doesn't react. And it's really powerful. Their whole dynamic through this whole episode is powerful.
And then at the same time, we have Ichar like right over Bashir's shoulder, especially during the scene I'm talking about, the confrontation scene after the Cisco stuff. Yeah, we have it here too in that scene where he's about to kill himself. But the scene before, Dave, where he's yelling at him for basically relieving him of duty. We kind of get a lot of these same themes where Nietzsche says, O'Brien says, "I told you to go away," and he goes, "You need to go back in there. He's trying to help you," and he's like you did, and it's like all this like accusatory tones that O'Brien has throughout this whole episode. He's a damaged man, and people are trying to help him. Dave, like
he doesn't want your help.
He doesn't want anybody's help.
I don't want your friendship. I just want to be left alone.
Is that very clear?
For another 20 years.
Yeah.
I murdered him.
I love the way he's murdered too.
The way he says murdered, I murdered.
Murdered.
Yeah.
I murdered him.
I murdered him.
Hell, I don't.
I just have
Anyone
to
else smell a setup coming? Kevin's totally going to give this a 7. I said all kinds of nice things now, but I smell a 7 coming.
Yeah, 7.5 maybe.
Heard it here first.
I can't imagine how difficult it is for him to be so alone, and like the only thing that he really had was his cellmate and some screams in the background to this bustling station with all these people, like in every crevice you step onto the promenade and you're just like swarms of individuals, right, all talking different things, conversations. It's the sensory overload that must have occurred. Should have been something that they should have also thought about too. I don't know how you can put someone in that type of scenario, like decontamination, like he needs to decompress.
Decontamination will proceed immediately.
You were on the ball. Look at that.
This episode also is very, very well directed. Like it's the way it's shot. There's so many great shots where like they kind of pan to him in the elevators right after like Ichar is right near him, and so, like, all these different things that you're talking about, Jaemeel, about his isolation and sensory deprivation, and then being overloaded with sensory. All these different things really show in the direction. It's great episode that way. I kind of want to talk about two other characters here. One is Caico at the beginning of the episode.
Yay!
Cisco.
Sorry, I was about to bring that up.
Cisco starts talking to Caico, and she starts and my favorite line maybe in this episode, as far as it kind of made me laugh, was she goes, "But Miles would never break the law intentionally." And I'm like, what? Like he's done it like a bunch of times in like in the show already. like he doesn't care that much about the law. He cares about what's right, and whether or not like he's always on like a super secret agent like mission for Cisco or a bunch of different people.
Remember when he helped Tosk escape?
Yeah, Tosk. Like there's a bunch of different things that he's done. I don't know. So I get that you're a spouse and you're gonna think the best of your partner.
But don't you remember his speech from Tribunal where he says, "Miles O'Brien, are you a criminal?" He's just like, I've always been able to say no to that question.
My parents.
That's who she thinks he is. Yeah, exactly.
My wife is the most wonderful, supportive
Mother
person
cooked
I've ever
food
known.
herself and made me not a criminal. But Caico's awesome. Talk about bad raps. Like Bashir gets a bad rap too, but people like complain about Caico all the time, and she's never anything but like a great character and a great actress. I don't understand it. I don't understand how anyone could not like Caico's.
She's so inconsistent. Like she's like sometimes she's like the like sometimes she's just like Miles stop screwing Miles.
I thought there was a mistake in this episode with Caico, and it's the scene where O'Brien yells at Molly, and she just kind of like grabs Molly and doesn't even address O'Brien. Like, and I get the way they're shooting it, and I get the way they're trying to make you feel, but I agree with what Dave just said, that a lot of times Caico is just like she's just the foil to really kind of show like what O'Brien's going through, and her reactions don't seem genuine. Does that make sense? Like, I feel like, yes, that's what you would do. You would kind of like protect and say like to your daughter, but you would also say something to your husband and be like, right? Like, would you not? Would you just
eggshells?
Nah, give it a few months there, Jeff.
I feel like you would say something.
Does she not just say, Miles, what are you doing?
She does say, Miles, what are you doing? But that's like in the moment. Right. There's no scene after. There's no nothing. Like, there's just there's no addressing of it.
You comfort the baby first.
I get that. I understand that, but there's like, I don't really understand why there's no conversation between them. I think they missed a beat in this episode between Caico and O'Brien.
A missing scene, perhaps.
A missing scene, yeah. Like, I think and that's kind of what I think Dave is mentioning about the inconsistencies, that I feel like the show is focusing more on O'Brien, and Keiko's just like, she's like a tertiary character, and in this episode she should be at worst a secondary character.
Yeah, well, they could have given a lot of the stuff that Ichar and Bashir get in this episode. They could have given some of that to her, but they weren't giving Rosalind Chow as much back then. It was, she only kind of comes in here and there. Like, really, Caico, especially on her Deep Space Nine appearances, kind of serves whatever they need her to be. Mm-hmm. But when you kind of look at her in a vacuum, I find she's kind of like this selfish kind of really kind of not too concerned with Miles. Like, she goes up to Bajor most of the time. Now, that's because they didn't want to pay her to be on the show as a regular. Yeah. So it's not really her fault, but it's just kind of like the way that the character's written, the way that they give so much more important scenes with O'Brien to other characters that aren't her. Molly is just kind of this annoying kid, to me. Like,
Daddy, come see what I drew.
Well, your drawing is bothering me.
Dave is basically post-torture O'Brien.
That was the best combination of two scenes in this episode that don't go together.
He doesn't like drawing. Okay.
Yeah, I think they make that especially clear throughout this episode. He doesn't like a drawing from Bichar. He doesn't like when he does his own drawing. He doesn't like Molly's drawing. Like any drawing.
No, that's not his thing. He plays the cello.
That's true. And darts.
Okay, the other character I wanted to bring up was Kira, because she's only at the beginning of this episode. She's the one who kind of goes and gets him out of the prison and then drives him back to the station.
That's it. That's all she does.
She does.
Never see it again.
Kira gets 10 seconds an episode now. Isn't that the same as last episode? We're all like, why is Kira here?
The episode after this is Shattered Mirror, and I think that it's going to feature a lot of Kira and Cisco in the Jake Cisco, I mean, and so like I think she's got a big episode coming up. But so does O'Brien. O'Brien's going to be in that scene in that episode quite a bit too. So I don't know. Like, sometimes you see like these patterns where some characters are just kind of like they're on the bench for this episode, but because they're going to be, they're going to be a starting center for the next episode. So they, giving them a break, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, like I think that I really love this episode. I think that it's so tight. I think it's never boring. It holds your attention. I think just like looking back on it now, like I'm just like, well, I think you could have even stretched this story out over a couple episodes, but that's looking back at it now, considering the way we watch TV now, the way that a lot of series are written, and what they would do to this with a story like this now. But in 1996, they were like, okay, we're gonna get an O'Brien episode. What do we want to do? Well, maybe he's in a mental prison for 20 years. Okay, what are we gonna do with that? Okay, we can bring in Rosalind Shaw. And we get that kid who plays Molly. Let's get them in here, and and so
what is it, old timeies? Like,
yeah, that's the old time.
Wait, we forgot about Jake. Let's get him in there.
Let's get Jake
He's
in
not
that.
the show. Oh, Tony Todd plays him, right? No. Only sometimes.
Jake will be teaching them how to identify tools.
Yeah, tell them what a hyperspanner is.
They have a checklist they have to check off.
Yeah, it's just like back in the caves or whatever, and like it's just like an Iron Man.
Scraps.
I felt vaguely ridiculous.
There's also the other part I wanted to mention with Kira is when she drives back to the station, there's the scene where Bashir is waiting for O'Brien, and Kira literally just taps O'Brien on the back and goes, "He's all yours."
Yeah,
that's the end of Kira.
Yeah. She taps out.
She taps out, and she basically says, "He's your problem now."
I flew the shuttle. What do you want?
You would think Kira would have some experience with prison camps and torture and cruelty.
She's got enough trauma of her own. She's not going to carry it of his. This privileged Starfleet officer who's never been through real trauma, simulated memories. I got real memories, just like Shax's.
She's like, well, good luck with that, Doctor. Bye.
Yeah, she's just got to carry his baby, not his emotions.
Yeah, she's like, I got enough on my plate right now. I'm first trimester, probably. Yeah.
Fighting fascism's a full-time job.
Yep. That's why we have to put all of our emotions into the wheel.
Take your never-ending bonfire of rage and bury it in the clay.
Sorry, the clay. Sorry.
Put it in the clay, baby.
Wheel.
Put it in the clay.
Clay wheel.
Okay. I think have we said what we wanted to say here for this episode? Is there anything I've forgotten? Anything you guys think is needed of mentioning?
I'm not going to do the hard time promo, so.
Ichar was all in his mind.
I think that is a strong debate. I think you could argue totally that Ichar is O'Brien, for sure.
I think he was a holodeck character that was partly adaptive to the way O'Brien interacted with him. And I think he's kind of presented as is.
I think that would be the debate 9, Davan. Is Ichar O'Brien's like thought processes, or is Ichar a holodeck kind of character? Which one is he?
Mm-hmm.
Is he, and I think that'd be a good debate for sure.
I do have
we'll
one
have
more
you
thing
on
to
the
add.
next debate 9 to debate it, Jeff.
All right, I like it.
Because the thing we were talking about Bashir earlier, right? Like because Brian gives this whole speech about how we're supposed to be evolved humans, and I'm not an evolved human. And Bashir's way of cheering him up is to say, "Look on the bright side, man. You hate yourself so much, you think you deserve to die.
You hate yourself so much you think you deserve to die."
That's like the most positive way to say that.
That is a great way of looking on the bright side, because I don't know, like he should go counsel in prisons. Like, look at, you're not killing yourself today, and you might not do it tomorrow. So that's a good thing.
Do it, and that's a good thing.
Yeah,
you want to do it. It's a good thing. It shows you're human.
Right. Well, yeah, I got the whole. This is a bit of a long clip, but I'll play it.
When we were growing up, they used to tell us humanity had evolved, that mankind had outgrown hate and rage. But when it came down to it, when I had the chance to show that no matter what anyone did to me, I was still an evolved human being, I failed. I repaid kindness with blood. I was no better than an animal.
He goes, "No, an animal wouldn't have felt bad. That's how you're not an animal." He's like, "I murdered him.
I murdered him.
Murdered him."
Murdered him.
We have several characters on this show that would not feel bad about murder. Garrick, Ducat,
Worf.
Worf. He might feel bad about it, but
he might feel bad about it. Depends who he killed.
I agree for them.
Brother,
Come
no
on.
dice. He's no.
Yeah. So yeah, I do think that O'Brien is, I think Bashir has a point there.
Glad Garrick didn't give him any advice this episode.
Yeah. Could you imagine Garrick was in the role of Bashir? He'd be like, "What? You did what you had to do."
Yeah, or Quark.
Now
for
you
that
had
matter.
twice as much bread.
Yeah, Quark would have just read.
I thought you were going to say HR. Can you imagine if Garrick was HR? But
Oh my god.
Oh God! If Garrick was HR, that would have been sadistic. He, in a lot of ways, like Garrick, reminds me of like Hannibal Lecter. So. Like I feel like if Hannibal Lecter was your cellmate, I don't think that would go over well.
Yeah, they're psychos.
Yeah, no, for sure. Okay, let's get into some double F with Jeff.
Okay.
Sorry, my guitar.
Double F with Jeff. Okay, gotta get themes.
Don't tell me what I need.
I'll tell you what you need. You need some double F, O'Brien.
I'm sick of it.
You're not sick of it because I have it right here. Bashir makes references to the TNG episode The Wounded, as well as the DS9 episode Whispers and Tribunal. Obviously, this is another O'Brien must suffer episode. Ira Stephen Barris sums up the rationale for these episodes. Quote, every year, we like to drive O'Brien totally mad. End quote.
It's the only explanation.
You figured it out, Chief. Okay, this episode features a performance by Margot Rose as Kapar Rin, one of O'Brien's jailers. She previously appeared in the beloved Star Trek Next Generation episode The Inner Light as Kamen's wife Eileen. In that Star Trek The Next Generation episode, Picard is swept into an imaginary world for 50 years as O'Brien is swept into a cell for 20 years in this episode of Deep Space Nine. So,
All offenders refusing to comply with dormancy period will be subject to habitat reprogram.
is The Inner Light the episode? There are 4 lights. Is that the same episode?
No, the Inner Light's the one where he learns to play the flute.
no, that's Chain of Command.
Chain of Command. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, he's Kamen. It's his wife.
Gotcha.
Oh, she's the wife.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's the wife. She's also plays that blue Bolian chick in that episode where Picard's trapped in a jail with like the Nausicaan looking dude.
That's the same actor.
And
Oh.
the Bolian. Yeah, same
Amy?
actor.
Her name is Margot Rose.
Margot.
The guy who played HR was in my favorite Freddy movie. Is that on your double Fs with Jeff?
I believe it is, but we'll have to get to it. Okay.
Yay.
The same.
Got it jumped in there.
I actually know what, it might not be there, so you can tell us later. Okay. The same premise of putting convicted criminals in a virtual reality prison simulation where they experience decades of imprisonment during a few hours period was featured in the Outer Limits episode
I told you.
Descendants in 1996, directed by Joseph L. Scanlan, who also directed 4 episodes of TNG, which aired 4 months after Hard Time.
So, but the episode David Hyde Pierce in the Outer Limits. You're saying that came after this?
It aired after, whether or not it was filmed. Yes, it is the same episode with David Hyde Pierce. That was episode aired August 4th, 1996. When did this episode air, Dave? Can you?
This was April 15th, 1996.
So yeah, there you go. So 3, what is it? That's 3 months. Yeah. No, 5 months.
But that's only when they aired, not when they were shot.
No, or written. Written is really kind of matters too. Okay. F.J. Rio, who plays Munez, also he also played Enrique Munez in the DS9 episode Starship Down, and the ship Yoleg in Voyager Repentance, and the Vizian chief engineer in Enterprise's Congentor. There
he's gonna die.
Yeah, and O'Brien's gonna be sad about it.
Yeah, him and Worf are gonna be sad about it together. They're gonna do the
Yeah.
Klingon thing.
Yeah, that'd be cool. This is the last
Was he in this episode?
Yeah.
He was very briefly. He was helping O'Brien out fix something. At one point.
He was O'Brien's boss.
Oh.
He's like, soon I'll be working for you again, but for now you work for me, crewman.
Yeah, crewman, get to work.
Oh yeah.
You don't know a phase conductor from
Hyperspanner.
a hyperspanner. So
Look at him.
An
Stu's
arc
gonna be
reactor.
running their place.
Okay, the last of the series to be directed. This is the last episode of this of the show to be directed by Alexander Singer, and the direction shows in this episode. I want to see what else. He also directed quite a few Voyager episodes. He actually,
Alexander Singer, you say?
and he just died actually about a year ago
What?
at the age of 92.
Rest in peace.
He's directed a bunch.
Can we get a
of...
follow-up comment about those beard comments? Does that make me the most evolved?
You're the-
You all saw that.
Is that, or I'm the least evolved?
That's what's
It's like-
being said there, right?
It is kind of like, yeah. Well, I guess it could be the evolution of a razor blade as well. I mean, we have Dave with the closest. Then it's
Come on.
me. Then Jaemeel, maybe. No, Jaemeel would be second to Dave.
Because of Movember.
November. Me and Kevin's got a bigger beard than me. Davan, you win. Dave,
I don't think there was any doubt.
Yeah.
Dave,
He's like, well,
did you
Yes.
notice the 47 reference in this episode?
There was no 47 reference
There absolutely 100% was a 47 reference in this episode.
that I did not notice it.
Do
He
you
wasn't
have
in jail for 47 years, was
no? Do you have a picture of the weapons locker that he grabs the phaser out of to
he?
kill himself?
I don't have a picture. of it.
Oh no way!
I'm about to show it to you. One sec. I just gotta pull it up.
he's making it right now, Dave. Don't believe it.
I don't believe it.
Truly maniacal. These 47 references.
He's about.
Careful.
How's that?
Okay. Yeah, you're right. There's a big 4-7 on it.
Crash.
Uh,
Systems crash.
Is that not? Am I not allowed to have it play for more than?
I'm sick of it.
Yeah, don't let it move on for sure.
Well, there it is. So that's the 47 reference in this episode. That's on purpose for sure. We have F.J. Rio's character, Munez. He's the first character to speak Spanish on Deep Space Nine. Or in
He
Star
didn't,
Trek in general.
he didn't speak any Spanish.
Not in this episode, but he will. This is the first mention of Counselor Telnori.
He calls
not-
him Hefe.
He does. He calls him Hefe. This is the first mention of Counselor Tenori, not seen on screen. This is also the first counselor to be mentioned in the Star Trek series since Counselor Troy in Next Gen. The name Telnori contains all the letters of the name Troy.
But also other letters.
Also other letters like L
Yes.
and
If you
and
know how letters work.
If you know how spelling works and letters.
It's such a weird. Who wrote that fun fact? Okay.
Yeah, it contains all of those letters because there's only 4 of them plus extras. But because later on, when Jedzir dies and Ezri comes into the show, that is Ezri's job, right? Or she's not a science officer; she's a counselor, right?
Yeah.
So
She doesn't do a lot of counseling though. to be honest.
Assistant
No.
counselor.
she's an assistant counselor.
She does some counseling with Bashir, and that's about it. Okay. When released in the UK, the
Thank
scene
you.
in which when released in the UK, the scene in which O'Brien kills Echar was edited to remove the sound of bones breaking.
Mm.
Too graphic for the British audience.
I murdered him.
You did. Okay.
But without sound effects in
Without-
England.
In England, they didn't. There was too much for them. They was said, "Ooh."
Did they? What about when he was like?
Quietly.
Because when he's like almost breaking Quark's wrist, did they edit that out too?
It's not murder. It's not murder.
Moida.
You know how many people do that in their local pub?
I know, right?
Yeah.
That daytime TV. Okay. The method of punishment inflicted on Chief O'Brien is somewhat similar to the punishment inflicted on Tom Paris in the episode Ex Post Facto.
Hmm.
Paris has the final memories of the man he was convicted of killing implanted in his brain and is forced to relive them on a regular basis. In both cases, the victims were falsely convicted, although for different reasons.
Discipline this!
And that's the other thing I kind of just want to bring up quick. Like, okay, what did Chief O'Brien do in this episode to deserve this punishment? He was doing espionage, right? That's what
He asked a couple too many questions about like their top secret stuff.
He went beyond the rope.
Why was he on this mission by himself? What was his purpose there?
Was it with Kira?
I don't think so.
Kira went to,
Yeah, he was with Kira.
Yeah, it was with Kira.
What were they at? Like some kind of conference?
yeah. I don't know. That part's unclear, and that's
Why
kind
those
of,
two be at a conference together?
Yeah, unless it was like to pretend that he's the pimp and she's the girl, and they got to get into the Cardassian prison camp to break out Buddy there. That's the only time they go on missions together. So I don't know. There's a couple things I can nitpick if I really start thinking like, who are these Agrathi? They suck. Let's get some tell them so.
Yep. I agree.
But we never see them again.
Good.
yeah, we never see they're that they're just like Voyager, a Delta Quadrant or a Gamma Quadrant, race that we don't need to worry about later.
Yeah, not as evolved.
Mm-hmm.
You want to hang out with the Agathi?
I'm not. No Agrathi are invited to my party.
Okay. Well, that was my last.
Maybe Ichar, but he's not real.
That was my last fun fact. So we can get on over to the ratings.
Ooh.
All right, let's get over to
Is he
the
a
ratings.
Agathi?
Ichar is Agrathi, right?
Yeah, he could be.
But he's not
Irish.
real, so he can't actually show
Well,
up.
I think he's Irish. He's green.
Okay. Kevin's going first, right? In the ratings.
Yeah, let's go ratings. and
Kevin
get
goes
this.
first.
Here
Let's get
comes.
Kevin out of
Here
the way.
comes.
Okay, is
I
it
wanna
is
say
Big
seven
Kevin?
for the joke, but I can't. It's 10.
And we
Of
can bring the
course
score up.
Okay, Davan, you're next.
7. No, it's a 10. It's a 10.
Did Ashley give you a rating, Kevin?
No.
And each hour, night for our night Wars. Best Freddy movie. Dream Warriors.
Jaemeel.
9.7.
I'm in that range. Do I want to give it a 10? Why not? I'll give it a 10.
9.9.
What's with the stinginess, Jaemeel?
I'm a stingy person, dude.
Little
can I say?
stingy.
Lowest rating, 9.7.
So
Had to get a
this
7
average,
in there somewhere.
Yeah, this is a very high rating. This is easily going to make our top 10 list. So at a 9.9, about as high of a score as I think we could possibly have. I just want to see what are the top 10 as of right now.
Move Along Home. This one.
No duets.
Visitor. The visitor's up there.
These are now this joins the top 10
Oh my God,
of what
you-
we've seen so far.
You guys rated crossover criminally high. Criminally high.
Well,
I
we
especially
Oh,
did.
well.
You know what? It was season 1.
I guess
We hadn't
You guys
seen a
should
good
get
episode.
20 years in an Agrathi prison for that.
We
also gave Dax a very the episode called Dax a very high rating. And looking back
wasn't
on
it.
that, I'm like, it doesn't deserve as high of a rating as we gave it. It's
I
not in
don't
the
think
top 10.
I don't think I gave it a high rating.
You weren't there. You weren't there at that point.
Yep.
Let's see. Let's clear the.
But I
filters.
came in a like a following episode. And I'm like, I was not high on Dax.
No, yeah. Well, if you guys want to help bring it down, please do.
5. No, I would have to rewatch it again and give it an actual proper rating.
7.
Gavin doesn't need to worry about. He knows.
Seven's
it's a seven.
probably a pretty good rating for that one.
Which one is that?
Yeah, I know Dax. That's a 7.
The one where Cisco has to defend Dax.
Yeah.
And Dax doesn't really want to be defended because it's like a Curzon thing.
It's the one with the first lesbian kiss on TV or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, it has
Oh,
that too.
Which
Is
that the one?
It wasn't technically, I believe.
Oh no, that wasn't the one. No,
No, it wasn't.
no, that's
No,
another
that
one,
wasn't the
which
one.
actually is a good episode. We watched it a little while ago. No, this one was about like Dax
And they took over.
Curzon murdered a guy, and they're trying to.
He didn't though. He just said he did.
Right, but
Yeah.
yeah, he said he
And they
did.
took over Quarks.
Oh yeah, that's the episode I was thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not as good as we thought it was. I'm bringing my rating down 8.5.
Yeah, I'm like an 8 on that one too, Dave. That's
Oh, wow.
Just exercise it from the top.
It wasn't even in the top 10, but we're saying it's definitely not going.
I don't
to
even
be.
know why I gave Babel an 8.5. I mean, Babel? I don't even remember that.
You're grading on a curve. It's early seasons.
Come on, Dave, break out the Babel.
Babel's a fun episode.
Oh, Babel?
Yeah.
Oh, hold on. You need to get
Some
some
O'Brien.
It's the one where they had to
O'Brien.
quarantine the station because everyone's talking gibberish.
Oh, yes. Yes, I did enjoy that one.
Yeah, you got to go to the major Lark's True.
Simple
Colors,
hesitation.
where- O'Brien.
I know Dave's got simple hesitation there somewhere.
The only ones that stand out in the first season for me are Duet and the crossover one.
I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed.
Why can't I find it? The Babel. I know I have it.
It's only a game.
Well, not what I know I can get. Hold on. Follow. EF. Guys, it's harder at this time. When you're under pressure and you guys are just waiting for me
Performance
to play.
anxiety.
It's only a game.
It's only a game.
Only a game.
Such a great episode.
Yeah. Anyway, so bringing that
I
down.
think we've
Okay.
made it to the second shaft, fellas.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's the Squid Game of Star Trek.
Oh, Lord.
Okay, I'm gonna take this down. Okay, so we got a 9.9, guys. Pretty good.
Deserved.
So what do we got next, Jeff?
That's a good question. Let me look at it real quick. We have Shattered Mirror, which is, I guess, this is an episode where they kidnap Cisco, or is
No, they already did that one, right?
They already did that one.
Yeah, mirror.
This is going to be Worf's first one, right? Worf's first time being in a mirror episode.
Oh, it's the mother. They bring back Jake's mom.
Jennifer comes.
Jennifer!
over.
Jennifer.
Jennifer. That definitely requires a plug. Where are you? Oh, here.
Jennifer.
I might have to skip next week just so I'm not a downer.
You're not a fan of the mirrors, right?
I'll bring this. No, they're all horrible. Every one of them. I give them
Even
all.
Enterprise. Even Enterprise.
No, not even Enterprise. That one's a 7. But yeah,
That one's pretty good.
but you know
I
what?
can see why you don't like
I think
them.
I just like it's shiny compared to the other Mirror Universe ones. I bet you it's not as great as I remember.
I don't know. Evil Hoshi.
We just can't leave her here.
Okay.
That's acting.
Yep.
Jeez.
I think the Mirror Universe would be like if they like went all in and did like a movie in the Mirror Universe or something. I think it would be really cool. But like
They did 3 of them recently.
Waka Waka.
Are you talking about like the
Kelvin. Yeah.
oh what are you talking about like the Star Trek new Star Trek movies?
He's making
Yeah,
an
fist
offhand
fight
remark
Spock
about
Academy Mirror Spock. Spock doesn't
Mirror
jump
Spock.
around on trains and fist fight and yell at people unless he's in the Mirror Universe.
He's emotionally compromised.
Well, yeah, the Kelvin universe is not Star Trek; it's Star Wars trying to be Star Trek, or Star Trek trying to be Star Wars. Sorry, but that's
Basically.
neither here nor there. That's what J.J. Abrams thinks Star Trek should be, and I don't.
And
really-
Kurtzman.
Yeah, well, that guy too. But J.J. Abrams is, he's a Star Wars nerd, and they gave him the Star Trek keys. I don't like it. Give it to somebody who knows what they're doing.
Give those keys to Mike McMahon.
Exactly.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, absolutely.
Or Edgar Wright.
yeah.
Let Edgar
Or-
Wright direct
He
everything.
wanted to make an Ant-Man movie where they actually turned into ants or something weird. So I'm
I can kind of understand why I like what they did with Ant-Man. So like, I mean, if Edgar Wright had done it better, I would have. I don't know.
No,
what
he
we
didn't
would've
want to
been.
do it better. He wanted to do it weird.
You don't know because
Way worse.
We never got it. We never got
Edgar
it.
Wright has never made a bad movie, so
I do like Baby Driver. I do like that movie.
I
so
love
I
Scott
disagree-
Pilgrim too, man.
I
But-
disagree with your assumption, Dave.
I didn't know
Like,
that
he got-
You would have liked it.
Marvel fired him for a reason. That's all I'm saying.
You would have liked it.
I might.
I'm
have.
with you,
All
Dave.
right. We'll never know. We'll never know. Okay.
So this is the Ant-Man podcast. Let's get
This
it
is the
together.
Edgar Wright. Let's trash Edgar Wright Day.
We're
let's-
Avengers. Get it together.
Okay.
David Hyde Pierce.
He was at Outer Limits. Come on.
Yes.
Jeff,
Okay.
keep us moving here. Keep us on track.
I'm trying. All right, pretty much. What do we have coming up here, Dave, on Live Long and Podcast and Super Mario Bros. Podcasting? We do tomorrow. I believe we have Survivor. Take us from there.
Tomorrow night on Super Mario Brothers Podcasting, our channel where we talk about stuff that's not Star Trek, we will be talking about the next edition of Survivor. I believe it's the 10th episode of this 41st season. We're down to the final 8 now, I think we are. We're getting down to the wire. So if you like Survivor, you want to hear what Jaemeel and Jeff and I think about it, check it out. We're going to be talking about it tomorrow night. Also on Thursday, here on Live Long and Podcast, we will be covering the second episode of Star Trek Discovery of their 4th season that just kicked off. This episode called Anomaly. Following up the premiere of season 4. We'll be talking about that with Adam Woodward, Michael Chan, I assume Ashley Millard. Can you verify, Kevin?
Yes, she is off on Thursday. So.
And she will also be there, I believe. So check that out Thursday night. We're on hiatus right now from our Star Trek Prodigy podcast, as Prodigy is on hiatus until January, which makes Thursdays a little easier. And also this Saturday here on Live Long and Podcast, check out our next edition of Star Trek Radio Theater, which has been on hiatus for some time. We will be doing the episode known as Wedge Douche from Star Trek Lower Decks. Second season, the 9th episode, an episode we did a podcast on not that long ago as we were covering all of the Lower Decks season 2 episodes. Davan, Jaemeel, Kevin, myself, Jeff, we're all of us here plus more. We're all going to be part of that, recreating that episode in audio format. Check that out. Jaemeel, are you from Hawaii?
Hawaii?
Are you also from Hawaii?
I might
Also
think I'm
from
from
Hawaii.
Hawaii. Is this thing really at 10:30 Eastern?
Well, it's we got to move it late. Yes, it's at 10:30 Eastern.
I am gonna be highly in a caffeination days. Oh wow!
Yes,
This
that might
is
help your
gonna be
Boimler
fun.
performance. Yeah,
Oh, these words are gonna come out weird. Just you wait. This is gonna be fun.
yeah. Here we go.
Formula.
Yeah, you got the Boimler. You've just been boimed. So check that out
Yeah, been
this Saturday
boimed.
night, 10:30 Eastern, which was 11:30 for Davan. And what else? Trivial Debates is our other channel where we are with movie, TV, sports, and more. That will actually be this Sunday. Jody Simpson hosting. That just hit me that this is this Sunday, and I still don't have 3 guests lined up. But I do have a host, so that's something. Damn, is it actually the 23rd of November? Yeah, it is. So I got 5 days to figure that out. Okay, time to get that going. And and then it's
Happened
gonna be-
last time too.
I'm usually more organized than this. This is actually pretty bad for me. And then starting on December 6th, we're going to be starting our Enterprise podcast, guys. It's been a long road. And that will start as Jody Simpson was alluding to earlier with his comment. It's going to be called Enterprise at 8 to compete with Deep Space Nine at 9.
It's 9-ish, and
It's Enterprise at 8.
Yeah, that'd be better. Enterprise.
No,
Waka waka.
that's not better in any way.
For that show, I mean, it's been a long road.
It's been 20 years since it started. So we're coming up on the 20th anniversary of Star Trek, or as it just was known originally, Enterprise, before it became Star Trek Enterprise.
Those 20 years of Enterprise, Dave, were like O'Brien's 20 years in a crappy prison camp.
Completely alone, no one to talk to.
I wanted to talk to him about the show that nobody watched except the Uber of Uber Star Trek fans.
I'm sick of it.
We're gonna be talking about it. All the episodes. Kevin Millard, myself, Adam Woodward, and others. So get ready.
Love it. Okay, is that
Great
it,
show.
Dave? Is that everything?
I think that's it. Of course, check out Locutors of Trek. Let's get Davan up here to plug Locutors. I was just on that the other night. We were doing one of his newer segments, Writer's Room.
The writer's room. Yeah.
I think it's newer.
Good
right?
pitches, Dave.
I pitched
That's
some
first one, yeah.
episodes, some ideas.
pitches.
As did the other guy. Was his name Travis? The other guy,
What's his name?
Brendan.
Brendan.
So
and then there was also
So
the other.
Sounds sort of similar.
If you know how names work.
You know how names work.
Yeah. So
Yeah, Locutors of Trek. What do we got? Tomorrow, I have a first contact segment. We're going to be my new sort of interview segment. First contact. I'm going to have first contact with Andre Mayette of the Graphic Histories podcast. We're going to review 15 issues of Deep Space Nine comics before our upcoming collaboration on this new X-Men show. Check that out on Thursday. X-rated, X-Men animated review show.
It's coming out. You're starting with the very first episode.
Night of the Sentinels,
Night of the Sentinels.
part 1 and
First
part
2
2.
episodes. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, beautiful.
I'm a hardcore X-Men Adventures fan. So
I love that show.
Oh, the comic book
I'm glad
series.
that they're doing something new with it in Marvel. So yeah, all great, man. Keep things trucking over at Locutors of Trek.
Okay. Kevin, do you have anything you want
Two
to
Doors of
plug?
X.
What's going on your Twitter?
Yeah, Instagram. Do you have
Pretty quiet over on the Twitter.
Snapchats,
okay.
TikTok.
yes, TikTok and Snapchat.
TikTok,
No.
Snapchat,
None of
what
that.
all the kids are doing these days.
Uh,
Okay, nothing. All right, no.
Nothing.
Okay. All right. Well, then, for all of us here at 269 and 9ish, I have been your host, Jeff Bader, joined as always by great panelists here: Dave Mader, Davan Skelhorn, Kevin Millard, and Jaemeel Robinson. Join us next week for Shattered Mirror. This has been Deep Space Nine at 9ish.
Nah.
All right.
Decontamination will proceed immediately.
You're not my friend. Not anymore. The O'Brien that was your